There comes a time when the weight of injustice presses so heavily on the heart that it feels almost unbearable. You know that feeling. The sleepless nights when your mind replays every cruel word, every unfair act, every betrayal that cut deeper than a blade. You kept silent, not because you were weak, but because you trusted that silence would speak louder than retaliation. And yet, it seemed as if your silence was taken for weakness, as if your kindness was mistaken for permission to wound you again. But listen carefully. God has seen enough. He has watched every tear fall. He has heard every whisper spoken against you in secret. He has witnessed how those who mocked your patience thought they were triumphant, and he has stored your pain as evidence in the courts of heaven. When the judge of all the earth rises to deliver a verdict, no injustice can stand, no lie can prevail, no weapon formed against you can prosper. What if the delays you faced were never rejections but divine postponements until the right moment of vindication? What if the suffering you endured was not wasted, but was being carefully woven into a greater story of restoration? Can you believe that the very things used to humiliate you will be the same things God uses to elevate you? Vindication is not just about proving others wrong. It is about revealing God's righteousness in your life. He does not simply repay what was stolen. He multiplies. He does not just silence your accusers. He prepares a table before you in their presence. Glory is not a prize you earn. It is the reflection of His hand upon your life when He lifts you higher than anyone thought possible. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned for crimes he never committed. To men he was forgotten, to God he was hidden, and when the time was right, God pulled him from the pit of despair into the palace of power. What was once his humiliation became the platform of his elevation. Is it not the same God who holds your story? Pause and ask yourself, could it be that every wound you suffered is about to be rewritten as a testimony? Could it be that the chapters of injustice are closing and the new pages will shine with vindication and glory? The same voices that mocked you will be forced to witness your rise, not because you fought them, but because God Himself defended you. You can end it with the glory God has defended the race, not because God Himself defended you. So stand firm. Do not let bitterness poison the soil of your heart. Do not let revenge stain your hands. For the season is shifting, the winds are changing, and soon those who said you would never make it will watch in silence as God lifts you higher than their words could ever reach. Vindication belongs to Him, glory belongs to Him, and yet, by His mercy, He shares it with you. This is your season. This is your moment. God has seen enough injustice. Now comes your vindication and glory. God has seen enough. He has watched every tear fall. He has heard every whisper spoken against you in secret. He has witnessed how those who mocked your patience thought they were triumphant, and He has stored your pain as evidence in the courts of heaven. There comes a moment in the life of every believer when the heart cries out, "How long, O Lord? You have endured the crushing weight of being misunderstood, being wrongly accused, being taken for granted, and being treated unjustly. You stood quietly, holding on to dignity while others trampled over your kindness. You bore the wound of betrayal without striking back, not because you lacked strength, but because you trusted the God who sees all. And though it often looked like heaven was silent, I want you to hear this truth. Not a single tear you shed has gone unnoticed. God is not blind to injustice. He is not deaf to the cries of His children. Every sigh, every moment of silent suffering, every act of cruelty committed against you has been recorded. The world may mock your patience, thinking silence equals defeat, but silence before man often roars before heaven. Your tears have spoken more powerfully than your words ever could. They have risen before God as a testimony, declaring, "This child has endured faithfully." Consider this: when the righteous are wronged, heaven becomes their advocate. You may not have seen it, but in the unseen realm, God has been gathering evidence. He has allowed your enemies enough time to reveal the full measure of their arrogance. He has allowed the whispers against you to grow louder, so that when He vindicates you, there will be no doubt that it was His hand and not your own. Can you sense it? The patience of God is not weakness. It is justice delayed until the perfect moment of revelation. Think about the life of Hannah, mocked for her barrenness by those who thought God had forgotten her. She endured the cruelty of being judged, yet she poured out her soul to the Lord. When God answered her prayer and gave her Samuel, her vindication was not just in receiving a child. It was in knowing that the very mouth which mocked her had to witness the blessing. So it will be with you. Those who laughed will see your lifting. Those who whispered will watch your witness. Those who thought your story was finished will discover it was only beginning. Do not believe for a second that God has overlooked you. He has seen the loneliness. He has seen the betrayal. He has seen the times when others celebrated your pain and rejoiced in your struggle. And now He has declared, "Enough. Enough injustice, enough cruelty, enough lies." This is not the end of your story, but the turning of the page. The judge of all the earth is standing, and when He speaks, His verdict cannot be overturned. So lift your head. What was recorded as your pain will now be presented as the evidence of your faithfulness. Heaven has taken note, and earth will soon see. What if the delays you faced were never rejections, but divine postponements until the right moment of vindication? What if the suffering you endured was not wasted, but was being carefully woven into a greater story of restoration? Can you believe that the very things used to humiliate you will be the same things God uses to elevate you? Delay has a way of making the soul weary. When you wait and wait, it begins to feel as though time itself is mocking you. You prayed, you believed, you gave your best effort, and still the door remained shut. While others moved ahead, you stayed behind. While others celebrated, you sat in silence, wondering if heaven had forgotten your name. Yet, delay in God's hands is never denial. It is divine timing at work. What if the pauses in your journey were not barriers, but preparations for a stage larger than you could imagine? God does not waste suffering. The pain you endured, the humiliation you carried, the ridicule that pierced your heart, all of it has been shaping something deeper within you. Think of a seed buried in the dark soil. To the untrained eye, it looks like the seed has been lost, swallowed by the earth, but beneath the surface, unseen by human eyes, life is breaking forth. Roots are taking hold, strength is being formed, and in the right season, that hidden seed bursts forth in life and fruitfulness. Your life has been much the same, buried in silence, hidden in pain, but not forgotten. When others laughed at your setbacks, they did not know that God was setting the stage for a comeback so radiant that it would silence their laughter. When they mocked your delay, they did not realize they were mocking the patience of God Himself, who was aligning everything in your favor. Sometimes the very things used to humiliate you become the instruments God uses to lift you higher. Think of Job, stripped of everything, wealth, family, health. People looked at him and said, "Surely God has forsaken him." Yet in the end, God restored him with double what was lost. His humiliation became the stage for his elevation. Your story is walking in the same pattern. The setbacks you endured are not random. They are rehearsals for the unveiling of glory. The rejection you suffered is not proof of abandonment. It is evidence that you are being preserved for something greater. Even the enemies who celebrated your downfall were unknowingly setting up their own defeat. For when God lifts you, the contrast between their cruelty and His favor will be undeniable. So do not despise the delay. Do not curse the waiting season. God has been weaving threads of restoration that you could not see, and soon what was once the source of your deepest humiliation will become the testimony of your highest elevation. The tables will turn. The voices that mocked you will be silenced, and you will rise, not because you forced it, but because God ordained it. The very delays that seem to bury you are the delays that will announce you. The pain you carried is the soil of your promise. The humiliation you suffered is the stage of your vindication. And when God says the time is now, no power in heaven or on earth can delay your destiny 1 second longer. Vindication is not just about proving others wrong, it is about revealing God's righteousness in your life. He does not simply repay what was stolen, He multiplies. He does not just silence your accusers. He prepares a table before you in their presence. Glory is not a prize you earn, it is the reflection of His hand upon your life when He lifts you higher than anyone thought possible. When you think of vindication, it is tempting to imagine it only as a scene where your enemies hang their heads in shame while you stand tall in victory. But true vindication goes far deeper than mere human applause. Vindication is not man's recognition. It is God's declaration. It is heaven's announcement that His righteousness is greater than human wickedness, that His justice overrides human injustice, and that His glory cannot be overshadowed by lies or cruelty. There is something divine about the way God vindicates. He does not simply balance the scales, He tips them in your favor. He does not merely return what was taken, He multiplies it beyond what you can imagine. That is His nature. He is not a God of half restoration. He is a God of overwhelming compensation. Consider the words of Scripture. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Notice He does not only promise the harvest, but the years. The very time you thought was wasted, He redeems. Imagine standing at the table God prepares. It is not hidden. It is not in secret. It is right before those who once mocked you, those who whispered against you, those who thought your story was finished. And there, in their presence, God sets out abundance, favor, opportunity, and blessing, not to humiliate them, but to reveal His righteousness through you. That is vindication. That is glory. Think of David, hunted by Saul, despised by those who thought a shepherd boy could never be king. Yet, when the time was right, God did not just give him a throne, He gave him a legacy. He multiplied his influence beyond his generation. David's vindication was not just in wearing a crown. It was in knowing that the same God who anointed him in obscurity fulfilled His promise in visibility. The same God is at work in your life. What was taken from you unjustly, He will not merely return, He will multiply. What was spoken against you in lies, He will not merely silence, He will turn into evidence of His favor. Vindication is not about you standing taller than your enemies. It is about God's righteousness being revealed so clearly that no one can deny His hand upon your life. And when His glory falls, it will not be something you can boast in yourself. You will look around and realize you could not have orchestrated this. You could not have arranged such a reversal. You could not have written such a story. Glory is not the prize you fought for. It is the signature of God on your life, saying, "This one is mine. This one I have chosen. This one I will honor." So, do not shrink back in fear. Do not be consumed with the desire to prove yourself. Let God's vindication speak louder than your words ever could. For when He multiplies what was lost and raises you in the presence of those who thought you were forgotten, His glory will not only be your covering, it will be your crown. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned for crimes he never committed. To men he was forgotten, to God he was hidden. And when the time was right, God pulled him from the pit of despair into the palace of power. What was once his humiliation became the platform of his elevation. Is it not the same God who holds your story? The story of Joseph is not just history, it is prophecy for those who have endured betrayal, injustice, and delay. Joseph was a dreamer. God gave him visions of greatness, yet his brothers responded with envy and cruelty. They stripped him of his robe, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. Imagine the depth of that wound. Betrayed not by strangers, but by family. Forgotten not by enemies, but by those who should have protected him. And, as if that betrayal were not enough, Joseph's life spiraled into deeper injustice. Falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, he was cast into prison. Years passed, promises faded, dreams seemed like mockery. To the eyes of men, Joseph was forgotten. His story looked like it had ended in humiliation, but to the eyes of God, Joseph was never forgotten. He was hidden. Hidden until the right season. Hidden until the stage of Egypt was prepared. Hidden until the moment his gift would not only free him, but feed nations. This is the pattern of God. What looks like abandonment is often preparation. What feels like rejection is often protection. And what appears to be the end is merely the hiding place before the unveiling. Could it be that your story mirrors Joseph's? That the betrayals you suffered were not detours but divine directions? That the very pit others threw you into is the soil where God is planting the roots of your future? When the time was right, Joseph was summoned from prison to stand before Pharaoh. In a single day, he moved from forgotten to favored, from prisoner to prime minister. His humiliation became his elevation. The same brothers who stripped him of his robe now bowed before him. The same voices that laughed at his dreams were forced to acknowledge their fulfillment. That is vindication. That is glory. And the God who did this for Joseph has not changed. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He still takes the stones of betrayal and builds the foundations of destiny. He still takes the prison garments of humiliation and replaces them with the robes of honor. He still turns the whispered lies of accusers into the very evidence that lifts his children higher. Perhaps you too have been sold into pits of despair, not by strangers, but by those closest to you. Perhaps you have sat in prisons of loneliness, carrying false accusations on your back. And maybe, like Joseph, you feel forgotten. But listen closely. God has not forgotten you. You are not abandoned. You are hidden. Hidden for the right moment. Hidden until your gift is needed. Hidden until the stage is prepared for your unveiling. And when your time comes, no chain will hold you, no lie will bind you, no betrayal will stop you. The same God who lifted Joseph will lift you. The same God who turned his humiliation into honor will turn your pain into power. The same God who wrote Joseph's story is writing yours. Pause and ask yourself, could it be that every wound you suffered is about to be rewritten as a testimony? Could it be that the chapters of injustice are closing and the new pages will shine with vindication and glory? The same voices that mocked you will be forced to witness your rise, not because you fought them, but because God Himself defended you. Every wound you have carried was not wasted. Every scar that sits upon your soul has a voice, and it speaks louder than the lies spoken against you. There is something sacred about wounds endured with patience. They are not merely reminders of pain, they are markers of survival. They tell the story of a heart that refused to give in, a spirit that would not break, and a faith that would not be silenced. And when God takes those wounds, He does not leave them as they are. He rewrites them into testimonies that shine brighter than the darkness that caused them. Think of it this way. Your life is a book authored by the hand of God. The injustices you suffered may feel like final chapters, but they are not. They are only plot twists. The author has not finished writing. What others intended as an ending, God transforms into the very beginning of glory. Just as ink flows differently on the next page, your story is turning. Can you sense the shift? The pain that tried to bury you will become the evidence that God was shaping a new narrative for you. Imagine the same people who said they will never rise, sitting in silence when you walk into your season of honor. Imagine the same voices that declared your life a failure being unable to deny your success. But here is the greater truth. Your vindication will not come from your striving, from shouting louder, or from proving yourself. It will come because God Himself steps into your story as your defender. You do not need to fight battles that belong to Him. He delights in showing the world that His children are never forsaken. Job said, "Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him." That trust is what God honors. Job's wounds were deep, his losses unbearable. But when restoration came, it was so complete that his former pain paled in comparison to his latter glory. His story was rewritten, his wounds became his testimony, and his vindication was undeniable. What if the same is about to happen to you? What if the pain you endured was not the final word, but the preparation for God's announcement? The very people who spoke against you will have no choice but to see God's hand on your life. They will witness blessings they cannot explain, favor they cannot comprehend, and doors opening that no one thought could be unlocked. Not because you forced it, but because God defended you. So do not despise your wounds. Do not curse your scars. They are the ink with which God will write your testimony. Soon, when people see you, they will not only see the pain you endured, they will see the glory that came after. Your wounds are about to sing a new song. They will not tell the story of defeat, they will tell the story of victory. So stand firm. Do not let bitterness poison the soil of your heart. Do not let revenge stain your hands. For the season is shifting, the winds are changing. And soon, those who said you would never make it will watch in silence as God lifts you higher than their words could ever reach. When injustice lingers too long, the temptation to become bitter grows strong. Bitterness whispers that revenge is the only cure. It tells you to repay pain with pain, insult with insult, cruelty with cruelty. But here is the danger. Bitterness does not destroy your enemies. It destroys you. It poisons the soil of your heart, and what God desires to grow there cannot take root if the soil is filled with anger and resentment. That is why God calls you to stand firm, to guard your heart, and to keep your hands clean. Revenge may feel satisfying for a moment, but it binds you to the very people who hurt you. It makes you their equal when God has destined you for something greater. Vindication belongs to Him, not to your flesh. If you try to fight the battle on your own, you step out of God's courtroom and into your own. But if you wait on Him, you will see a victory that no human hand could orchestrate. Look around you. The season is shifting. Do you feel it? The same winds that once pushed against you are now changing direction. The very storms that threatened to drown you are about to carry you to a new shore. God is moving pieces you cannot see. He is aligning circumstances beyond your knowledge. And soon, when he lifts you, the same mouths that spoke against you will have no words left. Silence will be their only response. Think of Daniel, thrown into the lion's den not for his guilt but for his faith. His enemies thought the lions would consume him, but when morning came, it was not Daniel who was destroyed, it was those who plotted against him. Daniel stood firm. He did not curse his enemies. He did not beg for mercy. He trusted his God. And God used the silence of the lions to prove his power. When Daniel was lifted out, his vindication was undeniable, and his enemies could not speak against him. Your story carries the same truth. If you allow bitterness to take root, you risk missing the table God is preparing for you. But if you stand firm, if you trust him to be your vindicator, you will see the winds of change move in your favor. The season that felt endless will suddenly shift. The words spoken against you will no longer matter, because your life itself will be the testimony. Do not lower yourself to the level of those who wronged you. Do not stain your hands with revenge. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Soon you will rise higher than the words, higher than the whispers, higher than the plots. And when you do, those who doubted you will be left with nothing but silence, forced to acknowledge that only God could have lifted you this high. Vindication belongs to him. Glory belongs to him, and yet by his mercy he shares it with you. This is your season. This is your moment. God has seen enough injustice. Now comes your vindication and glory. Vindication is not something you can demand, nor is glory something you can manufacture. They belong to God alone. He is the author of justice and the keeper of glory. But what makes his love so profound is that he does not hoard these things for himself. Instead, he delights in sharing them with his children, lifting them into seasons where his righteousness shines through their lives. What a wonder that the Almighty chooses not only to defend you, but to honor you, not only to silence your enemies, but to exalt you in the presence of all who doubted you. This is not about arrogance or pride. This is about divine exchange. You gave God your tears, and he returns them as laughter. You gave him your pain, and he returns it as purpose. You gave him your humiliation, and he returns it as honor. That is the beauty of vindication. He takes what man meant for evil and turns it for your good. And when glory comes, you will know it is not the work of your own hands, but the mercy of God that carried you here. Think of how many seasons you thought were wasted, how many prayers seemed unanswered, how many days felt like God had turned his face away. But now, as the pages turn, you will see that none of it was wasted, none of it was forgotten. Every silent night was recorded, every act of faithfulness remembered. Vindication is God saying, I saw you all along. I was with you all along. And now I will show the world what I have been preparing in you. When his glory is revealed, it will overflow into every area of your life. Not just in one corner, not just in one blessing, but in a fullness that cannot be denied. The very areas where you were mocked will become the areas where you shine. The very places where you were rejected will become the places where you are celebrated. The same voices that said, "You will never rise," will be forced to acknowledge, "Surely God has done this." This is your season. This is not a distant promise. It is a present reality unfolding before your eyes. You may still feel the weight of the past, but even now the shift has begun. Vindication is not on the way, it is here. Glory is not coming someday, it is rising now. And when it manifests, you will not have to announce it. The evidence will speak for itself. So stand in faith, beloved, stand in expectation, lift your head, for the time of humiliation is over. The season of silence is ending. The God of justice is moving, and he has declared, "Enough is enough." Your tears have reached his throne. Your prayers have filled his courts. And now he has spoken the verdict. Vindication and glory are your portion. Beloved, you have carried injustice longer than anyone could understand. You endured betrayal, rejection, and pain that words could never fully describe. But heaven was not blind, nor was God deaf to your cries. He has seen enough. And when God says enough, the story changes. This is the turning point. The chapters of humiliation are closing, and the chapters of vindication are being written. The lies will fall silent, the mockery will be silenced, and the shame will be lifted. What was meant to break you has only positioned you for breakthrough. What was designed to bury you has only planted you for resurrection. God himself will be your defender. He will not only restore what was lost, he will multiply it until it overflows. He will not only silence your enemies, he will prepare a table before you in their presence. He will not only lift you, he will cloak you in his glory, so that no one can deny his hand upon your life. So, hold on, child of God. Do not let bitterness poison your heart. Do not let fear whisper lies. The winds have shifted. The season has changed. This is the hour of your vindication. This is the moment of your glory. For the same God who vindicated Joseph, the same God who restored Job, the same God who exalted David, he is the same God who now moves for you. And when he moves, no power in heaven or earth can stop him. God has seen enough injustice. Now comes your season of vindication and glory. Walk into it with faith, stand tall in it with courage, and give him all the praise. For the story he is writing through you will be a testimony to generations yet to come.